Reporting that President Trump is in, quote, great mood, and told friends at Mar-a-Lago that he was, quote, glad it's over. He even hit the links with Kid Rock at Trump International earlier today. And the left couldn't have been more wrong.
I think more indictments are coming, and I think they'll be broad-based, and there'll be a general conspiracy indictment.
There are indictments in this president's future. They're coming.
We believe we may well have a criminal in the White House, and the next step is going to be the Trump family itself.
There was activities with the Trump campaign in Russia and releasing those hacks and guiding them to the states and the localities where they came from. Some of that was Jared Kushner's responsibilities. Some of it was Donald Jr. I think you're going to probably see indictments of both of those people.
And recall, the media is saying that the Mueller report was supposed to end the quote-unquote Trump treasonous presidency. Watch.
So it's nothing short of treasonous. Vladimir Putin and his associates, somebody has something on Donald Trump.
There's outright treason. I mean, there is no question that what he is doing is giving aid and comfort to the enemy.
President Trump could be indicted and possibly face jail time.
I think this is a potentially more dangerous situation than Watergate.
I think it's that serious. I think it's that grave. I don't think anybody really gauges how imperiled this presidency is. The end is probably in sight.
The end's not in sight for Donald Trump, but the end may be in sight for those who set the whole thing up. Joining me now with reaction, House Judiciary Committee member Congressman Matt Gaetz, Fox News contributors Dan Bongino and Sarah Carter, and former deputy assistant to President Trump and the host of America First on Salem Radio, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. This is probably the best panel ever assembled outside of a Hannity show. So I'm just happy to be a part of it. And I'll begin with you, Dan, because I know you've been chomping at the bit all day, and I can just see it in your eyes. Here's how I feel, because I'm a feelings guy. I want to talk to you guys about how I feel about this. On the one hand, I feel like this delivers a knockout blow to the press and the Democrats who've been saying collusion, collusion, collusion for the last 2 years. And when you couple that with a hot economy and the decimation of the ISIS caliphate, this is a two-term presidency, so the Democrats are going to have to start working with this president and not working against him. But on the other hand, I'm pretty angry, because the people that set this up, what's going to happen to them? What is going to happen to the people that set this whole thing in motion? Are they going to be accountable or not, Dan?
Jesse, that's really a terrific question, because it sets up exactly where I was going to go. I think what's getting lost in this scrum here after the Mueller report and the report that there's going to be no additional indictments, you know, a lot of people who knew there was no collusion are obviously celebrating because the truth came out. But Jesse, think about the damage here. The real case, the FBI's case, was entirely based in this dossier. The dossier is the collusion scandal. That's everything. So if Mueller could not indict and vindicate even one small component of that dossier, all of the players who spied on Donald Trump, used human intelligence assets, weaponized the intelligence agency, have now nothing to fall back on. And one more quick point on this. Here's the key question here. Jesse, when exactly did Mueller find out there was no collusion? Because his whole initial memo and his reason for existence was to investigate collusion. And that begs the question, what is that second scope memo that he got? What does that say? Because I think Mueller knew early on this thing was a big, stinking pile of dog, you get it. It was a hoax.
Right. Well, we know that Peter Strzok knew that there was no there. We have the text messages that say that, Congressman. So to Dan's point, Hillary paid for the dossier filled with Russian lies. It gets laundered through the Justice Department and the FBI and through the State Department. They buy this warrant to spy unconstitutionally on several campaign officials. They throw spies to infiltrate the campaign. And then at the end of the day, once he takes over and during the transition, everybody starts leaking and unmasking everybody. There's a lot of potential felonies that happened and abuse of power from the Obama administration. Are they going to get away with it? Because it looks like potentially they might.
They were getting away with it under Jeff Sessions and Rod Rosenstein. The hope is with Bill Barr as the Attorney General, there's a sheriff in town. We had 24 members of Congress who called on a special counsel to investigate the collusion that went on with the Clinton campaign, where you had hundreds of thousands of dollars paid to the Clinton Foundation to influence policy. Also, as I think Dan correctly pointed out, the real collusion here were Democrats hiring a foreign spy who was a known liar to the FBI to work with Russians to tell lies about the president to destabilize what has now become one of the most successful presidencies in the entire modern era. And so, 675 days the Mueller investigation took, longer than the United States' involvement in World War I and the Whiskey Rebellion combined. Out of those, we freed Europe and got cheaper whiskey. Out of the Mueller investigation, we didn't get a single indictment on collusion with Russia. That was the underlying issue. I don't think that the president's supporters should uncork the champagne quite yet. I think there will be negative things about the president in the report, but I mean, this was a biased group of people that only looked at President Trump and didn't look at the true collusion that Dan pointed out, and that I know Dr. Gorka and I have talked about on Salem Radio.
That's right. So the Democrats, Sarah, had a meeting today. It was a big conference call, and I would just love to have listened to that conference call.
Too.
God, I would love that tape. But the point was, according to Fox News sources, that they were trying to call the dogs off. And it was a therapy session and saying, listen, I know Mueller did not, produce the collusion that you were looking for, but guys, you can still go ham on this presidency with the subpoenas and the hearings in the Southern District. So, everything's going to be fine. We're still going to get this guy. Where do you see the Democrats pivoting to now?
Well, they've already made it perfectly clear. They want to pivot to President Trump's family, to his businesses. They're definitely exploiting everything they can with the Southern District of New York and those cases that are there now in the Southern District of New York. But let's talk about this. They're focused on both the election, whether there was election fraud, the family, the foundation, while we have on the other end probably one of the biggest, most egregious breaches with our intelligence community, just as Dan said and Congressman Gates said, with the FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act warrant, malfeasance within the FBI, and also within the DOJ. And we have to realize right now there is also an Inspector General who's working on this, Inspector General Michael Horowitz, whose report hasn't come out yet and will come out probably within the next month. And that should tell us a lot more about what happened during the Hillary Clinton investigation, but more importantly, what happened during the Russia investigation, Jesse. And I think that what we're going to see is William Barr. We're going to see a lot of these criminal referrals move forward. We're going to see indictments, but not of President Trump, not of President Trump's family, but of people within the FBI and people within the DOJ and people within the intelligence community that abuse the law and abuse the Constitution of the United States. So the Democrats can keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and they will, but they're only going to exhaust the American public's patience. People are exhausted of this. They don't want to see another 2 years of this, and I tell you, it's going to backfire on the Democrats big time.
Yeah, there does have to be some sort of accountability for the people that were involved in this from the very beginning. Dr. Sebastian Gorka, my theory on this whole thing is that they tried to set Trump up during the election. Trump caught them, fired Comey. They triggered the special counsel. The special counsel was just trying to cover up the abuse of power and the sting operation from the get-go. So to me, the Mueller report looks more like a whitewash of all the federal abuses that were going on and less of a search for the truth. Because like Dan pointed out at the top, we knew early on there was no collusion.
Jesse, you nailed it. Remember what we saw in those texts, those messages from inside the FBI and the DOJ. We need an insurance policy if Donald Trump wins. This is the insurance policy.
Yep.
Remember what happened. We had 2 years, $25 million of our taxpayer money, your taxpayer money wasted, to prove what? That Paul Manafort lied on his mortgage application. This is a travesty. The fact is, the only reason we had the Mueller probe was because Hillary Clinton lost, and they had to have a cover-up for everything they did to spy on another presidential campaign. This is the biggest political scandal in American history. And all I can tell you is when the president told me, May 2017 in the Oval Office, Sebastian, they'll never find anything because there is nothing. We've spent 2 years on a witch hunt and the president was vindicated. People have to pay a penalty for what they did with our money and how they used the law enforcement powers of this country as a political weapon, Jesse.
And that's a great point, because if Hillary were elected, none of this stuff would have ever come out. None of the abuses. You mentioned the word witch hunt, and that word was polled, the phrase, by USA Today, Suffolk University. Look at this. Look at this poll. Has President Trump been subjected to a witch hunt? A majority of this country believe yes. 50% of Americans believe yes. Is President subjected to a witch hunt? You know, about 47% say no. And this is after 2 years of the president hammering witch hunt, hoax, no collusion, fake news. And he's been castigated, Dan, for the phrase fake news. If this report comes out, and tomorrow we expect it to, it says there was no criminal collusion involving Donald Trump's campaign and the Russians. What does the word fake news mean? That word now has been completely vindicated. And the media, who's been selling this hoax, as the president calls it, what do they do with it? I mean, their credibility is shot beyond belief.
Well, I'll tell you what it means. It means that Donald Trump may be the first higher-up government official to take on the entire swamp, weaponized intelligence community, and the Democrat media complex, Jesse, and win.
Yeah.
For all the people who say, oh, he should stop tweeting, fine, I don't care about his tweets. You're entitled to your opinion. But there's no question his 52 million followers got the message that this was a witch hunt, because it was. And Jesse, one more thing on this. I mean, listen, people are getting tired of the Democrats changing the goalposts. First it was treason, then he was a traitor, then it was collusion, then it was obstruction. They've come up empty-handed on every single one of these. Obstruction is dead in the water. McCabe has already testified on the Hill under oath. There was no effort to obstruct the investigation. And in Comey's own memos say that Trump asked him to look at his, quote, satellites if they were doing anything wrong. Obstruction is dead in the water. It's nonsense.
All right, well, you bring up something else that they've been wrong about. Remember how they talked about how Trump was interfering with the investigation and was firing Mueller at any moment? Let's listen to some of that sound, and then Congressman Gates can react.
President Trump ordered the firing of special counsel Robert Mueller last June.
Why he moved to fire Robert Mueller.
That the president sought to have Mueller dismissed.
Effort to fire Mueller. His attempt to fire Mueller.
Trying to stop Robert Mueller from doing his job.
All right, so the report already said that Mueller was not obstructed in any way whatsoever by the White House or the Department of Justice, Congressman. I mean, these people, how wrong can you be?
It shows, Jesse, that the witch hunt continues. They were wrong about the president's intentions, the president's actions. They were wrong about Russia. I mean, the entire Russia narrative is like the Democrats' own version of the Fire Festival. It's all hype and buildup, but no substance. And I suspect that this will go on. The Democrats have launched an 81-pronged investigation into every element of the president's life because they need something to talk about. And in the absence of evidence, they have to continue to stoke their base with the theory that they're going to be able to undo an election that Donald Trump won in historic fashion. And I think that voters who want to see better health care, better roads, better trade deals, who want to see wars ended and an American economy rebuilt are actually going to appreciate this president for maintaining focus on the lives of the American people, while Democrats have been so impacted by Trump derangement syndrome that they haven't been able to focus on anything else.
Congressman, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was on the 5 yesterday, right when this was breaking, and I said, regular Americans, they care about their NCAA picks, their brackets, they care about spring vacation, what's on Netflix. And then I got hammered over at MSNBC saying, you know, how dare Waters, you know, put down the American people. These people live in a bubble. The exit polls from 2018, Russia wasn't even on the list No one even cares about Russia collusion outside of the swamp and partisans like, you and I. But, people on the street don't talk about the dossier and Russia and the Kremlin. They don't talk about that. And the media has built this up so much that people on MSNBC were actually crying reporting the news last night. Watch this.
Certainly say with confidence that there is significant evidence of collusion between the campaign and Russia.
He was colluding with the leader of a hostile power.
So much involvement, so many connections with the Kremlin.
It's so obvious that they were eager to collude with Russia. Now we're seeing the evidence that there was a conspiracy to cover up.
Well, that was the wrong video, but that was the Russia collusion allegation that we heard for many years. This was Rachel Maddow crying last night. Here it is.
As far as this letter goes, from the Attorney General, Bill Barr, tonight, Barr says he never exercised that power. He's notifying Congress formally there was never anything the special counsel sought to do that Bill Barr stopped Mueller from doing. And that's fascinating.
And she was tearing up. And I think Sarah, the person that tweeted that out, actually got banned from Twitter because you can't even do that anymore. I don't know what to say.
I don't know what to say either, Jesse. I mean, this is so insane. I feel like I'm living in upside down land. I feel like, and I think I've said this to you before, if President Trump ate borscht at a restaurant in New York City, they would want to indict him for it. It's just insane. I remember election night. I remember being there at the hotel. I was, at the Trump victory party, waiting for the results like everyone else. And as they started to pour in, I looked over and I just saw reporters with their mouths hanging open, tears coming out of their eyes, not because they were happy, but because they were astonished. They thought, they literally believed that Hillary Clinton was going to win.
No, this whole thing has been a reality check for the left.
That's
Dr.
right.
Gorka, you have 30 seconds left. Any last words for the people watching tonight?
I wish it were a reality check. These people live in an alternate universe. It's the Twilight Zone. It's Alice in Wonderland. But we can laugh about this stuff, Rachel Maddow and everything else, but this is a very serious issue. Yep. We have people who call the president a traitor who are on Congress. They need to be punished in 2020 at the polling stations.
They definitely need to wise up. All right, guys, thank you very much. Up next, Democrats getting weird on the campaign trail. Where do you see this? Today, the Democrats all vying for attention, pulling bizarre stunts and standing out in ways that are just plain weird. Here are some of this week's highlights. We begin with Kirsten Gillibrand pumping iron at the gym, calling attention to her T-shirt. Remember referring to a moment last month where a woman ignored her at an event just trying to get some ranch.
Face and the grassroots care about. Sorry, I'm just trying to get some ranch. Go ahead.
So she's most famous for people ignoring her. Also now, Beto O'Rourke, full of some very strange behavior. He's taking his campaign to new heights, one countertop at a time. But the restaurant manager is not too happy with Beto's theatrics, since customers eat on the counters that he's stepping all over. But Beto isn't the most sanitary guy. He reportedly ate New Mexican dirt for its regenerative properties after losing to Ted Cruz. Then there's Cory Booker getting a little too personal, sitting down with Ellen, gushing about his new so-called love connection with actress Rosario Dawson.
She is just a deeply soulful person and has taught me a lot of lessons about love already, and that sometimes you show the greatest strength when you make yourself vulnerable.
Speaking of personal moments, former Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper sharing this story about watching porn with his mom.
I didn't know what next movie was. We thought it was a little naughty, but we didn't think it was that bad. You want to come? And it's an X movie. I don't know. I was sure that she wouldn't say no. I made a mistake. So I took my mother to see Deep Throat.
You got to respect his honesty, I guess. Then there's 2020 long shot Andrew Yang getting some traction this week for his progressive platforms, including universal basic income. But it's his position on a touchy topic making headlines. The Daily Beast writing this. Andrew Yang, upstart Democratic presidential candidate, comes out against circumcision. We're just going to leave that there. Meanwhile, speculation building about a Biden 2020 run. The former VP hasn't officially announced yet, but is reportedly already considering naming a VP right out of the gate. Stacey Abrams, the Democrat who couldn't even win Georgia's governor's race last year. Joining me now, former White House Communications Director Anthony Scaramucci and senior advisor to the Trump 2020 campaign, Katrina Pearson. All right, is this better than anybody? You either have buzz or you try to create buzz. And these people are just trying to create it, and you can't really create a movement.
Or you accidentally step in buzz, too. I've been there as well.
That's right. So let's say Gillibrand at the top. Can we pull up the video of her? So I think these were dumbbell flies, incline, maybe 15 she's got going there. I thought she was for gun control. Look at those pipes, Smooch.
Yeah, it's not doing it for me.
No?
I just got to be honest with you. Yeah, I mean, it's just, she's not going to make the next Jane Fonda fitness video. But I mean, the thing about her, which I find fascinating, is the level of lack of self-awareness. At least you and I know we have some level of self-awareness about our boneheadedness, but her, she actually thinks she could be president. So I just think it's funny.
I predict she'll be the first one to drop out on the Democratic side. Katrina,
she's got no shot.
No shot. No shot.
She's not even on the board for casino purposes.
No. She's not even a long shot. Katrina, so you look at someone like Gillibrand, and then you look at Cory Booker, who, perhaps he is romantically involved with Rosario Dawson. It just seems a little staged considering he announces he's running for president and then confirms on Ellen he's dating a famous Democrat activist from Hollywood. Are you buying it?
No, Jesse. Full disclosure, I too dip my pizza in ranch. But I'll also say that you mentioned Cory Booker, but he also did this after this Me Too allegation that's been floating around out there. But he doesn't have to worry because Ellen DeGeneres gave him permission not to get married before he's elected. So we're going to have to see how that goes. But I actually have a different theory about all of the chaos that's going on the left and these contenders who are competing for the most outrageous claim of the week. Still can't quite get over the circumcision prohibition or watching a dirty movie with your mother who sat all the way through it. But I will say, perhaps this is all just a tactic, sort of a strategy to distract from the real issues, because as long as we're talking about this, they're not talking about the policies that they want to promote.
Well, and the policies they want to promote are completely out of the mainstream. And notice, they're not talking about the economy. They're talking about these little things like circumcision. Not a little thing to a lot of people, a big thing, but nevertheless. Anthony, can you believe that neither the son or the mother didn't leave the X-rated movie? They actually sat and watched the whole thing. Is this oversharing a symptom of the Democrats' desperation?
Well, or they're basically trying to get out there out of a conventional style box. Because one of the things the president has going for him is so successful is he's not a politician, and he's done so many unconventional, and frankly, he's lived a great life. And so they're trying to say like cuckoo la la things in an effort to become less quote unquote standardized, standard issue politicians. And so I think that's the move that they're trying to do strategically.
What about Joe Biden?
That's obviously not going to work either because that's not authentic.
So
and one thing you can say about the president, he's very authentic.
Yes, sometimes people would say he's too authentic.
Yeah, well, I love that about that.
Of course you do, because you're just as authentic as he is.
Well, yeah, that's why we both get in trouble when we can giggle at the act that it is. But Joe Biden, again, I think he's trying to bring in a younger vice presidential person because Joe's got three things that are not going for him. He is male, he is pale, and he is stale. Okay, and that combination is not going to help him in that party right now at this time.
Yeah, Katrina, is this pandering to the African American community by naming a VP, a female, an African American woman so early? I mean, is this lazy because he doesn't want to campaign that hard? He's just going to send her out to do the dirty work?
Well, absolutely, Jesse. Not only is this pandering, but I'm kind of curious as to why these Democrats are toying around with Democrats who lost in red states. Biden's going to have to compete against Beto, which is the guy that the media is propping up to take over his centrist position. So what does he do? He goes out and finds a very liberal black female, hoping that it's going to balance him out. And I think it's a non-starter.
All right, Anthony, Katrina, thank you guys very much.
Great to
be here.
All right, up next, Ben Shapiro breaks down how desperate Democrats are to beat Trump. We'll show you how radical they're getting.
Headlines we're looking at: the European Union slapping Google with another big fine. This one, $1.7 billion. Antitrust regulators finding Google used exclusivity clauses to prevent competing websites, from running ads by Google's competitors. The EU has fined Google nearly $10 billion to date. By the way, the United States hasn't fined them at all. $10 billion to the European Union and nothing here for the poor old home country. And an off-duty pilot reportedly saying a Lion Air Boeing 737, just a day before the plane crashed, the extra pilot was seated in the cockpit helping the crew when the plane fell almost 900 feet. In less than 30 seconds, the plane crashed the next day with a different crew on board. And Border Patrol releasing 50 migrants, I believe illegal immigrants, from custody in McAllen, Texas. Officials saying agencies have run out of space because of overwhelming illegal immigration from primarily Central America. This comes as the Border Patrol has arrested more than 400 illegal immigrants in El Paso, the groups including families and unaccompanied minors. Joining us tonight, Congressman Mark Green, a member of the House Oversight Committee, the Homeland Security Committee, the House Freedom Caucus. Congressman, good to have you with us.
Thanks, Lou.
It's stunning stuff to see the head of the Department of Homeland Security sort of shake her head and say that the border is near a meltdown because they can't handle 100,000 illegal immigrants in 1 month. And that's half the number of 11 years ago when the Border Patrol had just about a third of the agents that it does now. How could this be?
Well, it's because the Democrats are preventing any funding of DHS. I mean, they won't give us the money for the wall.
Right.
$1.4 billion is nothing. They clearly need more resources, and I have to applaud the president. I think he just gave $100,000 worth of his own salary to help DHS with this. I mean, it's ridiculous. The Democrats, they want an open border. They don't care. It's crazy.
So what, I guess I'm getting to the point where I'm tired of Republicans sort of sitting on their hands and bemoaning the existence of the radical Dems. You've known what they are for 20 years. And we now have a Republican president and a Republican administration, a Republican Senate. We had a Republican House until Paul Ryan screwed that up pretty thoroughly. And now you guys can't come up with an imaginative response to what the radical Dems are, or a way in which to secure the border. I mean, this looks like the white flag of surrender to me. And I have to tell you, it's either a white flag or a red flag. Either way, I'm going to be reacting. And millions of Americans are alike.
I agree with you, Lou. It is absolutely absurd that we can't get the Democrats to help out on border security. And right now, they're in control. We need 18 seats in the House. America, please help us get them back and get control of the House again. We will get border security. We'll make it happen. So.
But the crisis is now. I mean, don't you want to say to the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, get in the field, get out there and find out how you can fix this now, whether it's with barbed wire, concertina wire, I don't care what it takes, or give them a welcome wagon or something, but make up your mind about what is America and where is that ingenuity and where is the drive and the ambition to defend what is the greatest country on earth.
Well, again, I got to give it to President Trump. I mean, he has deployed military forces to the border to do just that, put up concertina wire, do whatever they possibly can with the resources that they have. So I think the president is acting. I mean, he's doing everything within his power, declared a national emergency, going after some dollars that haven't been spent in defense. I mean, he is doing what he needs to do, and I applaud him for doing that.
Well, I do too. No president before him has even made sense sense of it, let alone take an action. But I'm going to put this to you as a military man. You're a decorated veteran.
Yes, sir.
I guess the question becomes at some point, to what effect? To what effect? It isn't enough to do, it's to get it done. And right now, this administration needs to get it done.
I agree, and clearly there's more to be done. We can't do it without the help of the Democrats as long as they hold the majority in the House. And that is the battle cry across America for 2020. We have got to win back control of the U.S. House.
Congressman, I will say to you this. If you wait till 2020, it's done. It's cooked and it's over. And if anybody told you that you somehow have to give over control of the United States government because of 18 Democrats, I think you were misinformed. And I sure hope to heck that that is not an extant truth that I have simply ignored. I hope that we can still save this country.
I can certainly speak for myself. I'm 100% with the president, and I stand with him, and I think many of us on our side of the aisle are doing just that.
Yeah, I know that you're well-intentioned, and I know that you're standing strong with the president. I'm just hoping like hell that's enough. Congressman, let's turn to the justices who upheld the detentions. The president won one in the Supreme Court. How about that?
That's great. I think he wins one more immigration ruling in the Supreme Court. The liberals are going to have a conniption. I mean, this was a huge victory.
Well,
for the
let's hope
president.
they have conniptions all. I'd like to see it 24/7, year after year after year, because they need some conniptions. Because right now, the Republicans seem to, we've discussed the Republicans right now.
Well, if you look at this, it's just like the packing of the court. You know, they've got this notion now where they want to pack the Supreme Court with activist judges, creating some kind of court of superior legislators. You take this ruling, of course, they can't stand the fact. I mean, the Ninth Circuit Court basically kept DHS from detaining criminal aliens who were just pending deportation. I mean, the Democrats, they want a different country, whether they want to do away with the Electoral College, change the Supreme Court, they want to change how elections are run, they want to force California-style elections on the rest of the states. I mean, they want a different country, and it's ridiculous. We won this one in the Supreme Court. I'm excited about it. You know, another victory for the president on immigration is a good thing.
Congressman, good to have you with us as always, Congressman Mark.
Thanks, Lou.
Thanks so much. We're coming right back after this. Stay with us.
I can't believe it.
DHS says the United States on track to catch 100,000 illegal immigrants at the border this month. That would be nearly 24,000 more than last month. Former President George W. Bush, using more platitudes and nonsensical expressions about border security and immigration today at a naturalization ceremony in Dallas. The former president called immigration, quote, a blessing and a strength. End of discussion, apparently. This from the man who last year said Americans don't want to pick cotton at 105 degrees, and we ought to welcome those who do. Ignoring the fact, ladies and gentlemen, that according to the EPA, 99% of cotton in this country is picked mechanically these days. This seems to be the level of knowledge and intellect that 3 previous administrations brought to the issue of immigration. A new report today says a meeting between President Trump and Xi Jinping may be pushed back to June. The United States and China at odds now over how to enforce any trade agreements should they be made. A big development tonight. Congressman Devin Nunes today filed a $250 million lawsuit against Twitter, accusing Twitter of failing to remove defamatory and malicious tweets from real individuals and bogus accounts alike carrying the congressman's name. The lawsuit also says Twitter was designed to discredit him and to undermine his ability to carry out his Russia investigation. Newark, New Jersey becomes the latest city to experiment with that brilliant radical idea of universal basic income. Where are they going to get the money? We'll be right back with the Washington Examiner's Byron York. Stay with us. Newark, New Jersey has come up with another radical idea, planning to test a universal basic income program. Newark has a 28% poverty rate, median household income of $31,000. And freshman Congresswoman, everyone's favorite socialist, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Friday called a House Oversight Committee hearing a little boring, dealing with her apathy by doing push-ups during a recess. Oversight Committee Chair Elijah Cummings can't be too pleased with Cortez calling his hearing on the census citizenship question boring. We'll see what happens. And the radical Dems on the committee probably wish they hadn't tangled with the hearing star witness, none other than Commerce Secretary Ross, who is the smartest Commerce Secretary to serve in decades. Joining us tonight, Byron York, Chief Political Correspondent for the Washington Examiner, Fox Business contributor. Great to have you with us. I mean, what is it with, Ocasio-Cortez she is a phenomenon. She can commit every gaffe, every preposterous construct known to the language, seemingly, and still get more ink. We're really committed to her, aren't we?
Well, I think we should all be in favor of physical fitness, and some of these hearings do get a little tedious at times. But you're right. At the moment, she is completely Teflon. So much so that I think a number of Democrats on Capitol Hill are at the least irritated by the idea that's being put out that Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are kind of the whole new freshman class when Democrats picked up dozens and dozens of seats in this last election.
And today, the national media repaired to none other than George W. Bush for his new fresh thinking on illegal immigration. I want to share with you this quote because it really speaks so directly and so volubly about the president's comprehension about illegal immigration when he said, Americans don't want to pick cotton at 105 degrees, but there are people who want to put food on their family's table and are willing to do that. We ought to say thank you and welcome them. And the president had no idea that 99% of cotton picking in this country is mechanical. It's automated. What in the world? It's embarrassing to watch this nonsense emanating from the comprehensive immigration president. I mean, he said famously that Americans don't want the jobs, and therefore we should permit illegal immigration is effectively what he said.
One thing to note about former President Bush is you've seen all these reports lately about the growing crisis at the border. The New York Times reported that the border was at a breaking point with 76,000 apprehensions of would-be illegal crossers last month.
Kirstjen Nielsen, the secretary, said that, quote, it's a system-wide, near a system-wide meltdown.
You just reported that could be 100,000 this month. Now, there is an argument you hear both on the left and from Republicans who oppose this position that it cannot be a crisis because it used to be worse. 10, 15 years ago, it was close to 1 million apprehensions a month.
But your point is...
What I was going to say, though, when it was worse, that was when George W. Bush was president, and there was not any of the sort of action that the president is advocating.
And by the way, that was not considered by the DH secretary then a meltdown or being near a meltdown when it was dramatically higher than 100,000 a month. But these things are not simply relative. They're being managed for a purpose. When the DHS secretary cannot manage the system, cannot defend the border, then, it has to be a matter of political will on her part because she is failing at her job. It's her responsibility. And you tell me, why is she put up with?
That situation of massive illegal crossings did lead to the passage of the Secure Fence Act in 2006, which in the end only kind of assured let Americans know that there was a certain amount of kabuki involved in all this, because there was a bipartisan consensus to pass a bill that looked tough on illegal border crossings.
To do what?
And then there was a bipartisan consensus not to do it. Well, to build a fence, to build 700 miles
but first
of
there was a consensus
layer
to build
fence.
a 750 miles of fence. I can remember so clearly Congressman Duncan Hunter at the time saying to me, we've got this bill. Dana Rohrabacher, we've got this bill. It's going to be a must build, 750 miles. And guess 750. And that's in the current bill discussions. 750 at the time. And meanwhile, they voted the next year to get rid of the whole idea. We were just funning, they said.
Exactly. The original bill said that the department shall construct this fence, and they changed it next year to may, and that took care of everything.
Isn't it wonderful how you're... Can I call that swamp yours, Byron? Are you... I'm going to make a gift of it to you
I have to plead guilty. I'm looking around. I am here in Washington, D.C., yes.
Okay, just so we understand each other, because I'm in the pristine...